Thank you for joining us. Let me introduce to you our guests. We have with us Dr. Mitch Hopewell, Provost and Dean of Online Learning. He'll be conducting the Q&A with Prof Dickson, Chairperson and Professor of our Communications Department. Welcome, Dr. Hopewell and Professor Dickson.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We've done a number of these over the last couple of months, and so I've come to really look forward to the opportunity for me to just hang out and talk with our amazing faculty and just have conversations about what's on their mind and what they're thinking about. So we answer questions for anyone that might be online and ask questions. And so, Dr. Dickson, tell us a little bit about yourself. Fill us in. How did you get here?
Sure.
How did the Lord bring you to Masters? What's going on?
I arrived here in 2002. My entree into the university was actually teaching at our degree completion program at night, and I was working at Grace TU as a copywriter, and the university was looking for someone to come on board to teach some business writing, and so I got a call, and someone said, "Hey, Bob, are you free to meet for lunch? I work at the university." Back then it was the college, Master's College. I worked at the college, and so we met at Black Angus here in Santa Clarita. And about halfway through lunch, I realized he's going to ask me to teach, which was great because I had gotten a master's degree in teaching, but I was working as a writer, which was I have two professional loves, writing and teaching, and I had been working as a professional writer for about 4 years at that point, and at that point I realized, so I knew that all that education wasn't going to go for naught, right? Mm-hmm. So I started teaching part-time here in 2002, just at night, and that just grew. And it was something that I always knew I wanted to do. I had prepared to do. I realized that I had a lot more to learn about writing than I thought I did once I started getting paid to write professionally, and so I was glad I didn't get a teaching job right out of my master's degree. So I had a lot more experience to draw from when I finally did get in the classroom, and then it just grew. And by 2006, 2007, I was teaching in the traditional program to the 18 to 22-year-olds, and in 2014, my predecessor as chair of the comm department, Dr. Jack Simons, retired, and at that point I was working full-time on the marketing side for the university, and he came into my office there and he said, "Bob, I'm planning to retire at the end of the year, and I'm going to recommend that you take my place." So I've been chair here since 2014, and I hope that I'll go from here to the grave. Those are my career goals.
Yeah, that's a really unique, that's a really unique perspective. Most faculty tend to move around and, go from one university to the next. So the dedication I see in our faculty is really remarkable. You mentioned professional experience, copyright. I think you've done some journalism
yes,
related stuff. And so our faculty not only have the professional background, obviously, but they are, we're striving for those that are academically prepared and engaged. So tell me the classes you teach. What's kind of in your normal, and what are some of your one-offs that you really enjoy teaching?
Well, I teach many of our journalism courses within the communication department, and that's from introduction to journalism to magazine writing to in-depth reporting. I teach the creative writing and publishing emphasis as well, so that's creative writing, the graphic novel, poetry writing, and then I also teach in our marketing media segment. So that's maybe the advertising, copywriting, podcast studio, for example. What are my favorite one-offs? Boy, I love all of the classes. I love memoir writing, journal and autobiographical writing, because students from 18 to 20, I first started teaching the memoir writing to the adults, and it was a very rich experience because these are 40 and 50-year-olds. They've raised their families, and they have such a lot of history to write about, and we would have these amazing experiences in class when we would share our memoirs, and I wondered how it would work when I adopted it for the 18 to 22-year-old group, and I naively thought it might be a little thin. I was altogether wrong about that. The students at 18 years old have plenty of life to talk about and write about, and they're a lot less reticent to share than the older generation, and so those classes became really like miniature families on campus. And I still stay in touch with my old classes. We form Facebook groups and things like that. So that one jumps to mind. I do like those one-offs, like graphic novel, science fiction writing, because those are just my loves. Those are old hobbies of mine that have a place here on campus in the pre-professional venues that we kind of roll in. So, and then of course, journalism, because that's where I wrote my dissertation about. Journalism is I think where we are needed to have a place, and journalism is in crisis right now. So it's becoming more and more imminent that we teach these things that we teach in journalism.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about some of the other programs in the communication department. But so you mentioned journalism specifically. So right now, everybody's watching news, everybody's consuming. There's also at the same time this weird distrust of the media. The world is potentially going nuts, right? So what is the role of journalism, and what is the role of journalism right now in this crazy world?
That's a great question. What should it be, or what is it? I mean, I guess both, right?
As I was asking the question, I was thinking through the same thing. Should, is, what. So let's talk about just kind of what is, like, what are we facing right now?
Yeah, what we're facing right now is the product of an economic model that failed started failing in the mid 90s and collapsed in the early 2000s. And that's the old journalism model, which was newspapers were funded by advertisers, mainly cars and real estate and personals. And all of that was replaced by eBay, Amazon, and car dealerships, having their own websites or cars.com or carsdirect.com. These newspapers lost about 90% of their revenue, 90 to 95% of their revenue in a span of about 6 years. And no industry can possibly prepare for that. There was no, and so they were scrambling and trying to figure out how do we monetize the internet. And in the end, what ended up happening is that the premium went from being accurate and being complete and in depth and providing what newspapers should provide, what journalists should provide, which is a context through which we can make decisions about the world around us. A common set of facts that we can all agree upon and then argue about and discuss and arrive at decisions about how we vote, what we buy, what we want to do with our families, all those types of things. And that was replaced with the premium is now speed. The internet changed the model from a 24-hour news cycle to really a minute-by-minute news cycle, and the monetization came through clicks. And so clicks are driven by provocative headlines, sensational headlines, and look, that's not new. I mean, we had Teddy Roosevelt was complaining about the muckrakers, in the late 1800s, so in the early 1900s. So that's not new, but it's, at least it took 24 hours to get it out. It didn't have a wide dispersion rate, but you put something out on the internet, it goes around the world instantly. So, the horse is out of the barn at that point. So in that context, accuracy goes out the window. The traditional gatekeepers of facts and information are dissolve and are replaced by, we got to get it out there before everybody else. And if we're wrong, that's okay, because we can fix it, but we got to be first.
We can fix it just as fast as we were wrong.
Yeah, but the problem is nobody really comes back around for the fix. They read the headline, and that's the end of it. And so in that kind of environment, you have the onus now really falls upon the news consumer to figure out what's true and what isn't true. And we in a perfect world, we'd all have an hour to spend with each article to vet whether it's true or not and look at the sources, but we don't. So we have now chaos. You wonder why when you don't agree with somebody about a particular item in the news, whether it's how we're handling the coronavirus or it's, who should I vote for in this election, or isn't it strange how you can't find common ground anymore? Like there isn't any, we're siloed in terms of what our belief systems are. And that's because we have two people living in houses side by side, getting their news from completely different sources and not getting the news from anywhere else. And so there isn't any common ground. And the newspapers, what they should be doing, what I say newspapers, journalists, what journalists should be doing is giving us all the information. And they're not, look, journalists aren't perfect. They're not going to get all the information right away, but they should be striving to give us all the information without bias, without an agenda. There shouldn't be activist journalists like there shouldn't be activist judges, but there are. And so what happens? Stories get ignored, stories get slanted, stories get censored. We're seeing that now in social media. So that's a big part of the division we're experiencing right now. We cannot agree on a common set of facts.
Mm. So how, as a citizen, how do we consume news? Like we have to get our news from somewhere.
Sure.
We need information.
Well, I mean, the internet is relatively new, 20, 25 years, but as early as 2011, a Pew Research study found that 38% of Americans, U.S. citizens, were getting their news from some form of social media in 2011. Now, here we are, it's 2020, and Pew Research has come out with a new study, and 25% of adults in this country are getting their news just from YouTube. I mean, think about how, and YouTube's not even the most ubiquitous of them. It's really Facebook and Twitter, and that data, they don't even have that data yet because it changes so rapidly. But if 25% of us are getting it from YouTube, how many of us are getting it from social media? Probably close to 90. So I don't think that's going to change, Mitch. I would love to tell you that the newspaper is going to make a comeback and we're all going to start taking the morning news, and with a cup of coffee, but it's not going to happen. We're going to continue to get it on our phones. We're going to scan headlines and we're going to see what our friends share on social media. And therein lies the real problem. What I've said before is just the context for the most significant issue. And that is Twitter is where I get most of my news. Like I think that's where Twitter shines the brightest because it's a quick way of sharing information, short, quick, and with links provided. But here's the thing. Now, I teach journalism. I understand how important it is to get a wide array of points of view on an issue. But I can't stomach some of the news outlets that I should be following. And after about a day or two of trying, I just go, I can't take it anymore. And I unfollow them. And sometimes I even mute them. Like I don't want anybody even sharing them to. I'm so incensed by what I'm reading. So what happens? I only get what I want to see. Mm-hmm. And all that does is reinforce what I already believe. So we kind of are now getting the journalism we deserve. And I'm a part of it too. Like we are intentionally siloing ourselves and to reinforce our own confirmation biases, and we don't want to come out of it. And so again, when you talk to your neighbor and you give them a set of facts, they look at you like you just stepped off of a spaceship from Mars. They don't even know what you're talking about because they never saw those stories. So that's the situation.
Yeah, and the more we behave that way, the more that the algorithms feed that to us.
That's right.
And yeah. Okay. So,
but there's hope. There's hope.
Okay, good. Let's go with that.
And I'm painting a pretty dire picture here, but there is hope, and the hope lies in a couple of things. Number one, journalists have to start doing their jobs. And I hate to sit up here and throw stones at hardworking journalists who probably aren't making a lot of money and they're under a lot of pressure, but we need to instill ethics back into journalism. They're just not there. This notion of advocacy journalism is Watergate and beyond. It's we've never been nonpartisan in journalism. I mean, in the days of the colonial era, during the Revolutionary War, they called newspapers the partisan papers. That's what they were called. I mean, they've always existed to make a case for something, to present a certain point of view. But at least you had a few competing points of view. You could choose a few of these, and you could be informed. Now nobody's running any interference, and so you have these journalists that are kind of running rogue, and they have a certain agenda. They don't like a certain politician, a certain candidate. They believe a certain way about a certain issue, and that's all we get. And there's even some bullying and intimidation about journalists. You know, I've worked as a journalist who hold a minority view. They're not welcomed anymore. We just had a junior editor at the New York Times resign, and she wrote a very daggerish letter of resignation that was published and disseminated through social media about why she was leaving the New York Times. And she said she's leaving because, she's not going to be accused of being a hyper conservative by any stretch at all. She's definitely on the left leaning side, which would be more in line with what the New York Times, their editorial position is. And she said she couldn't stomach it anymore because she saw that people who didn't hold the party line were not allowed, were belittled and weren't given platforms in the New York Times. Now, I'm not just picking on the New York Times. This is the case everywhere. That has to be corrected at that level. And how does that happen? It happens with publishers that have a backbone and a spine and integrity and determination to say, we actually want to be the fourth estate that the newspaper industry, that the journalistic industry is supposed to be. We want to, to use the cliche, we report, you decide, right? We actually want to do that. That's the first thing that has to happen, and it can happen, but the consumer has to demand it. I mean, it is an industry. It is a money generating industry. The corporate media responds to what people buy and what they watch. So in this landscape where you don't have enough of that rounded reporting, rounded journalism, the stage is set for an organization that's really going to do it the right way to come along and find a place in the market. Absolutely, because a lot of us feel this way. We all, whether or not we understand why, we all sense that something is wrong with the way we're getting information, that we don't trust, nobody trusts the media anymore. I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on. I don't trust it. I go, that's funny because I'm hearing something the opposite from over here. So which one is it? And that's dangerous, Mitch, because we don't know what we're supposed to be doing with how we protect our families from coronavirus, for example. Do masks work? Don't they work? Can I go visit my mom or not? What about who we vote for? What the purchases we make? Do I buy a house or not? I don't know. This newspaper saying the market's good for it. This one's saying it isn't. I don't know. So we want this. We all understand something's wrong. So an entrepreneurial journalist with a little bit of backing, financial backing, or who can really sweet talk a bank, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I really do. I think people would flock to that if an entity came on board, or one of the ones that already existed, and said, "Look, we admit that we've gotten out of control, and we're part of the problem. We're going to be part of the solution now. We're going to employ an editorial staff that represents both sides. We're going to make sure that our front page gives full vetting to both sides of an issue, and then we're going to just put it out there." And this isn't just newspapers and websites. This is CNN, Fox's broadcast news. That could happen. That could happen. And I think it's going to happen because the migration away from the traditional news agencies has already begun.
Where are people going to get news? Or are they just not getting it at all?
They're like people who are tired of MSNBC are migrating to something like One America News, which I think is way too far right. But or they're going to YouTube to find people who aren't even they're not a publishing agency. They're just making their own stories, and that's why you get these ideas about conspiracy theories, because people say, well, we're gonna censor that group because we don't like what they're saying about and about I don't want to start naming potential conspiracy theories here, but but that's where people are starting to get it now. They're getting the news from Reddit and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
there is a migration away. I won't say the migration right now is going in a good direction, but at
Sure.
least there's evidence that people are sick of it.
So what if somebody was like, I'll just ask the question for me, and hopefully people watching are, asking the same question. But if I'm gonna try and consume a balanced diet of of news, where am I gonna go? I mean, I'm not asking you to endorse anybody. I'm just saying, how do I make informed choices about what I am consuming?
I think you have to be willing to read some perspectives that you don't agree with. I think that's part of being an educated, active citizen in any republic. You need to do that, and that means you have to inject yourself into discussion boards where your voice is going to be the one in the wilderness, right? You have to challenge. We have to challenge our own confirmation biases, number one, because if we're not going to do that, then how are we any better? We're not. That's not really fair of us to to say, you fix your house, I'll leave mine the way it is. So we need to do that, and you're never going to turn off your biases. And I don't think you should. I think that's important. They're not random. That you arrived at them for a reason. They're based on your experience. That's wisdom, right? But when you're talking about a specific issue, and I think coronavirus is a great case study for this, because you have CNN reporting something, you have Fox reporting something different, then you have MSNBC reporting something totally different, then you have the president saying something altogether different, and Joe Biden saying something even more different than that. Well, I can also go to the CDC website, for example. That's just numbers, right? I can go to the World Health Organization, and I don't know, we can argue about that one a bit if you want, but you're right. But we can go and say, give me it's what a historian would say, primary research. Give me the primary data, and then let me take that. Right. Let me go back to these places, and then I can decide who's being trustworthy and who isn't, and that's where it sort of begins. But I do have to force myself to go to certain websites and discussion boards and videos and channels that I have to bite my tongue, stop from jumping off the couch and yelling at the TV because you're lying. This is what are you saying? I have to say, no, this is research. I want to be able to say when I don't agree with a politician or someone in my world and I disagree, I want to at least be able to say, yeah, I know what your side is. I've investigated it. And so it really does still fall on us. I do think we get the news we deserve. And if we demand better, we'll get better. But it starts with demanding. We have to demand it of ourselves, and we have to become willing to challenge, to be exposed to both sides with discernment and wisdom, so that we can articulate a clear argument to both sides of. Otherwise, the chasm is just too far. And that's disaster for a country. We need to come back to the table and find some common ground. Nobody's happy with the way the country is going right now, as far as the division. And people have theories about who's to blame and what's the reason. But my theory is that it really falls at the feet of the failure of the journalistic entities to do their jobs. And so I'm trying to fight the good fight here with the students. I've got students in my classes.
Well, let's talk about that. So journalism major, maybe tell us what you're aiming at with that. I mean, I get a sense of that from your discussion. What are some of the other majors? Comm is a common major across many universities. You talk to a lot of students. I'm a comm major. What does that mean at the master's university?
Yeah, the communication major here is I think, I know it's special, but I think it's unique too, because what we have under the communication umbrella here, I already mentioned journalism. I'll talk briefly about creative writing and publishing. That's typically what you would find in an English department. But what makes our creative writing and publishing unique is that it folds in the publishing side of things. So yes, can you write stories? That's great. But storytelling is also a part of corporate communication. There's tons of books and they talk about storytelling. How do you tell the story of your company? Public relations is storytelling. We have photography, graphic design, editing, pretty much anything that has to do with content creation falls under creative writing and publishing. And that involves various technologies and social media outlets, TikTok, for example, or Twitch. I mean, people are making money creating content for these organizations, either individually or for companies that know they need to be in that space, but they don't know how. So our students learn how to do that. They take classes like social media and communication, where it's not altogether just theoretical, it's theoretical, but also practical. How do you utilize social media to help a company brand itself or move product? So it's creative writing, but it has a pre-professional flavor to it, which is very unique. Rather than just, gee, I graduated, I have a book of poetry, will anybody read it? It's like, no, I've graduated with this, and I can come and help your organization tell its story. And we also have novelists. We had a student graduate a couple years ago, and she published her first novel. She's working on her second novel. So, that happens too. But we want to make sure that our creative writing and publishing graduates, if their day job doesn't just have to be, waiting tables. I'm not knocking waiting tables. I was a waiter, for several years myself, and it was a lot of fun. But anyway, so that's creative writing and publishing. We also have a whole cinema and digital arts program nested under communication. And cinema and digital arts is ostensibly it's film, but film is more than just film. Digital arts, it involves all components of visual storytelling. Now, so we make short films. We just finished our first, as you know, feature film that the Masters University was a major player in, of course, and was produced through our department with our students, and that will become available on all streaming platforms in January. So, once everything dies down and people are done watching the news, they're ready to watch something else more uplifting. That will be available. The Man from Nowhere is the name of the movie. So our students in that major, they work in the industry. They graduate and they go work for the film industry. But it's not just the film industry. It's multimedia storytelling. It's working could be for a church doing church media. It could be for an organization. It could that wants videos to be placed out there so they can sell whatever it is they want to sell. It could be, and we have several graduates who have started their own production companies, and they're I should mention that all of our emphases include an entrepreneurial bent. All of them do. And that's critical because we are very pre-professional. And so we have 3 different classes within the comm major that have the word entrepreneurship in it. So it's really important to us. We stress it. Internships are required for a couple of our emphases and encouraged greatly in all of them. And most of our students get internships before they graduate. It's a great way to learn, but also a great way to make that transition into the professional world where you're getting paid.
So our communication officers and departments of communication, are those still a thing in corporate America? Are those jobs that are still?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We talked about social media and how quickly what you say goes around the world. That's a double-edged sword, and you just can't have anybody willy-nilly tweeting or posting on behalf of your organization. That's Russian roulette. Sooner or later, it's going to cost you, and it might cost you a little. It might cost you everything. That it can't be done that way. It needs to be in the hands of somebody who's thoughtful about this, who understands messaging, branding, who understands the pitfalls, and whose job is to avoid those pitfalls, and in addition to helping brand the company. So absolutely, they're still a thing, and more a thing than ever.
That's one of the things I really appreciate about your department in particular, Bob, is that there could be a sense of, I'm going to study communication, and you get random faculty here, there. This would be at a typical institution. Because of the size of your department, because of the missional focus that we have, that backs up, everything we do with a Christian worldview, I see what's happening in your department is you're really creating students that are well prepared to do a specific thing and impact the world in a specific way. Aside from every random professor in the department, has their little hobby horse that they go after. I see in your department that you're all locked together in this effort to produce ethical truth tellers, skilled at what they do, faithful to their God, but also curious, and they can contribute meaningfully to their departments, or their organizations when they get a job. Because as fun as it is here at the university, you gotta get a job, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So
And at some point, you know, you're moving out and you're into the world, and you need to prove it, right? You need
yeah.
to prove that you can be value. You have to bring value to where you go.
Yeah.
And
So you mentioned a novelist that one of our graduates, and I need to get a copy of that, by the way, because I haven't read it.
Okay.
Any other particular standout graduates? You know, we care about all our graduates equally, but sometimes our students get, you know, higher profile jobs than others. So,
Well, sure. I mean, we've got a couple of graduates who started their own production company maybe 6-7 years ago, and I can remember talking with this young man when he was you know, kind of they were just getting started, and you know, going through, because I was freelance for a decade myself, and how do you do that? How do you make that work? And you know, I knew he would be successful because I knew both of them would be successful because they hustle, they work hard. And so they have their own production company. And so what they do is they'll go to organizations, businesses, churches, missionaries, it could be anything really, who want videos done. You know, what we used to call commercials, right? You know, but they want videos done for just a website or for social media distribution and beyond. And so they've been successfully doing that now for 5, 6, 7 years, and are growing. So, you know, they now employ their own freelancers who come in and, you know, help them. They have to spill over. And we've got students I got a student who just graduated last year, creative writing and publishing, and he before he even graduated, he was working down at Grace Community Church, developing children's curriculum for them. And now he's involved in a paid internship, doing a podcast for a sports ministry here in Southern California. So sure, these things happen all the time. You know, don't get me bragging about my daughter now, because she's graduated 2 years, and the pandemic was her invitation to, she's already working as a marketing director. She stepped away from that role because they were furloughed. She was furloughed, and she took advantage of the opportunity to build a social media platform initially through TikTok, and then it went on to Twitch and Instagram and YouTube and everything else. And she's at, I checked today, because I check every day because I'm her dad, right? I can't help myself. 184,000 followers on TikTok, and over 1,200 subscribers on Twitch, and you know, I go on and on. But you know, we're going to have her come in and talk to a few of our classes next semester as a good example of what I mean when I say you don't have to wait for someone to kind of vet you, bless you, and give you a platform. If you're skilled and you want to hustle, and you know how to manipulate these different media, you can be your own content creator. And so she's making that happen. So you know, those are just a few, just right off the top of my head. We've got a gal who graduated from Cinema and Digital Arts, who was working as a production coordinator on a major documentary just wrapped up about a year ago. And I mean, the whole industry's kind of shut down right now because it's very expensive to do a production right now. But she's going to be jumping back in here just as soon as the productions get rolling again. So yeah, across all the different areas where we send students out, they're all out there getting paid to do it. Yeah. So it's exciting. It's fun for me. Exciting.
Well, we're at the end of our time. I don't see any questions from our online folks, but I'm going to turn it back over to you, Vanessa, and have you wrap us up.
Thank you, Mitch. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We hope this session has been helpful for you. If you have further questions, please reach out to the Masters University. Our admissions department number is 661-362-2363, or you can email us at admissions@masters.edu. Please keep in mind, if you want to see other recordings, learn about other profs, we have those posted on our website, masters.edu/virtual preview. Thank you for joining us. We hope you had a wonderful day.
All right.